Hi all, Adi here from Haunts and Jaunts. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I'm in deepest, darkest Surrey and I'm in the middle of the Surrey Hills. I'm in a little place called Albury and I'm going to check out St Peter and St Paul's Church. It's no longer in use and it's now looked after by the church's Conservation Trust. Loads of interesting original details and stuff to look at. I'm not sure if you can hear it. There's some bells ringing in the background from a nearby church. It's obviously bell practice day, so let's go and explore. The old church of St Peter and St Paul stands quietly within Albury Park in the Surrey Hills, and it preserves architectural features spanning more than 1,000 years. The church has Saxon origins and developed gradually through the medieval period, with later alterations in the 18th and 19th centuries, but today it is preserved by the church's Conservation Trust and is recognised as a Grade 1 listed building because of its historic and architectural importance. And here in the nave, it dates predominantly from the 1300s during the later medieval period. And up above here, can you see the remains of a beautiful medieval wall painting, and it depicts St Christopher carrying the Christ child. And there used to be a medieval tradition held that anyone who saw the image of St Christopher would be protected from sudden death that day, and there were quite often the paintings placed where they could easily be seen by people entering the church. And this is the old north door of the church, and it's another feature that reflects the medieval layout of the building. The building is now looked after the church's Conservation Trust since 1974, and the trust cares for the church in partnership with the Friends of Albury Old Church, and it is still used for occasional services. And the church actually featured as one of the locations in the film Four Weddings and a Funeral in 1994. Check out the church's Conservation Trust website if you're interested in some of the amazing work they do. And there's this beautiful old monument chest. Not sure if it's an original. Beautiful. The nave has several memorials on the walls, providing a record of the individuals and family who were once connected with the church over the centuries. And this is very unusual. There is a Roman font drum, and it is believed to have been a reused piece of Roman stone, suggesting that material from an earlier Roman site was incorporated into the church fabric. Although it's believed that the bowl from this church was moved to the new church in 1841. Over here on the floor, there is the brass of John Weston. The Latin inscription translates as "Here lies John Weston, a knight who died on 23rd of November 1440. May God have mercy on his soul." Now, brasses such as these were a common way of commemorating prominent members of the local community during the later Middle Ages. Nearby on the floor is a slightly tapering coffin lid stone, and around the edge is an inscription in Lombardic lettering commemorating William Weston III, who built this aisle of the church in the late 13th century. Over here on the south wall is a 13th century basina, and these small stone basins were used by the priests to wash their fingers and the sacred vessels during the Mass. And its presence over here shows that the medieval altar would have once been located here. Over the chancel arch is the funeral hatchment of Louisa, Duchess of Northumberland, who actually died in 1890. And the reason it's here is because the Albury estate still forms part of the estates of the Duke of Northumberland, although the mansion house is now in separate ownership. Just to the left there was a memorial for William Oughtred. Apologies if I've said it wrong. Now he served as the rector here in Albury for 50 years, but he was also an influential mathematician. His book was published in 1631, and in publishing the book, it helped popularise the use of the multiplication symbol X. And here we see the beautiful carved wooden eagle lectern, which would have been used for reading the Bible during services. And next I'm going to step into the tower, and the lower parts of this tower contain very early masonry, and it may represent the location of the chancel of the original Saxon church. Later alterations extended the structure during the medieval period. Above it rises the distinctive wooden cupola, added in the early 19th century, and it was covered with wooden shingles. But today the tower contains a single bell, and it was actually hung here by the Friends of Albury Church in 2008 after the original bells had been moved to the newer parish church in the village in 1841. And we're going to move now into one of the most remarkable parts of this building in the south transept, and it was later converted into what is now known as the Drummond Chapel. In 1819, the Albury Park estate was purchased by the banker and Member of Parliament Henry Drummond. Now, a few years later, he began major changes to the estate, and he actually eventually built a new parish church closer to the relocated village, and at the same time he decided to transform the transept of this old church into a family mortuary chapel. For the work on this chapel, he commissioned the celebrated Victorian architect Augustus Pugin. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? And he was one of the most important figures of the Gothic revival, and he's actually well known for his work on the interiors of the Palace of Westminster. He created an exceptionally rich decorative scheme for the chapel. The walls were painted in vivid colours, including red and gold decoration, the ceilings panelled with decorative panels, and the chapel also contains that beautiful, striking stained glass window. Because the decoration is extremely fragile, well, I imagine that's why this part of the chapel is kept closed to protect it, which is totally understandable. So as visitors, we can only view it from outside the screen, but even from a distance, it gives an impression of the richness of Pugin's design. Now, conservation work has already taken place in recent years to stabilise and preserve the decoration so that it can survive for the future. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to move now into the chancel, and we come to an area that once fell into some serious disrepair. For around 100 years, the chancel was actually without a roof, and it actually stood partially ruined. It was only in the late 20th century that restoration work replaced the roof and brought the space back into a usable condition. A small piece of glass in one of the windows, which I'll show you in a moment, records the restoration carried out here in 1988. And as we walk back through the church, we will see some ledger slabs set into the floor, and one of these commemorates Henry Wicks, who was born in 1580 and later became paymaster in the Office of Work. Now, that was the government department responsible for royal building projects, and in that role he worked alongside figures such as the architect Inigo Jones. But after the political upheavals of the 17th century, he moved to the nearby village of East Horsley, and he became a friend of William Oughtred, the rector here, and it was the mathematician. I've just shown you some of the pictures of where it was ruined. So I'm sure that due to his friendship and that connection is probably why he was buried in such a prominent position in this church in 1657. Yeah, there's some great photos there showing the restoration work that's helped preserve the building. Buildings like this survive thanks largely to conservation charities and local support, so it's always worth contributing if you can. So I'll put the information for the church's Conservation Trust and the Friends of Albury Old Saxon Church down in the description below if you want to find out some more information about the church or the wonderful work that these charities do. I'm just going to take a quick walk around the graveyard. Unfortunately, it just started to rain as I stepped outside, but we could get a good view of the tower, and you can see the early masonry below, and the snowdrops just starting to come out there, and then you can see the distinctive shingled cupola above. The old church of St. Peter and St. Paul is a small building, but it preserves evidence of more than 1,000 years of English religious and architectural history, from its Saxon beginnings through the medieval period and into modern conservation efforts. I'm going to wrap the video up here. If you did enjoy it, please do like and subscribe. I really would appreciate it. And if you're watching on a mobile phone, you can hit the hype button, and that really just boosts the algorithm. Doesn't cost anything, but it really helps my little channel out. If you do want to help the channel a little bit more, help me get to more of these places, then there's the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. This church is looked after by the church's Conservation Trust. I will put a link to their website down below if you want to find out any more information about the churches they look after, or make a donation directly to the church. Anyway, thanks again for watching it, and I'll see you for the next one. It might be a haunt or it might be a jaunt, who knows.